Making
Now recording.
See, isn't it a little weird? It's like little weird AI shit.
Well, at least it's not pretending it's a person. I'd rather have AI like talk like a robot, honestly.
You know what? That's fair. If the robots started to sound like Jarvis, but like a butler, I'd be a little freaked out.
I mean, I'm cool with whatever, but I just think it's, I don't know, it's kind of charming in its own way for it to kind of like play into the fact that it is artificial. So
That robots are like my biggest fear next to like heights. I don't like heights. Yeah.
It's terrifying. It's exciting and terrifying. It's just like, it's like seeing a giant canyon in front of you that you're about to jump into, and you're like, this is amazing and it's beautiful, but oh my god.
Yeah. Wow. What a beautiful way to say that. Shit, dog.
Shit, dog.
Shit, dog. This is gonna be a good episode.
Shit, dog.
No, don't. You just got back.
Be pretty funny to name the episode "Shit Dog," and then
wouldn't.
just not Sean's name.
That's so mean.
That'd be so mean.
It's
I'm down.
Shit, dog. You're down. Oh my gosh. Episode title: Shit, dog. This is Waiting for Seconds, the interview podcast where we meet people and ask them who they are and why they are. I'm Shannon Miller, and I'm here with my co-host, Malcolm Outkelt.
That's me.
That's him. And today we'll be talking with Shaun Chaffee. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Shaun, and here on this podcast talking to two handsome, amazing fellows.
Well, thankfully, so am I.
Oh my god,
yeah. But yeah, like I live in Washington State. I work in the IT industry, leaning towards cybersecurity. That's kind of the direction I'm going. I'm a big nerd. I like video games. I'm really big into science and history. And then as far as history goes, I do historical reenactment as kind of a hobby. Other hobbies, I do things. I play D&D religiously.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of a big nerd. I like space.
Hey, nerds.
Yay, nerds.
What's your favorite thing about space?
What's my favorite thing about space?
Yeah, just generally.
That's a tough one. If I had to pick one thing, it'd probably be black holes.
Ooh.
I feel like that's such a basic answer.
Well, if I had to pick one thing,
that's fair.
I mean, I can say a lot of weird stuff. There's a lot of weird things in space. Like, there's a really weird hexagonal shape on one of the poles of Saturn, and when you look at it, it doesn't look real. It looks like it was manufactured by something. It's just how the magnetic... Yeah, it's just like how the magnetic poles are aligned. It makes this weird hexagonal like shape on the poles. It's really weird when you look at it. It trips me out.
On Saturn.
Yeah, some people Googling hexagon.
No.
Some people think aliens live in there.
Dude.
Yeah, that's
space
cool
is crazy.
That's cool. Right?
Yeah.
I think I found my new favorite thing about space.
Yeah, I love like physics and relativity and black holes. Everything just kind of breaks down, and it's really interesting to kind of study. But there's a lot of weird stuff like on Saturn and different places like that are nearby.
Gotcha. Well, before we actually continue talking about space, because I want to continue talking about space, I just want to kind of say how I know Shaun, mostly through video games. Like
Shaun
Malcolm.
From video games?
Shaun from video games. Like Malcolm, I met both of these people through my brother Austin. Specifically, starting off with like, I want to say it was just Lethal Company, which wasn't that long ago, and then the Renaissance Fair that's up in Idaho, and you are a part of a community called the. I'm gonna beef it. Soul. Can you give me one good one, Sean? I can't.
It's called the Solhjálmur Vikings.
The Solhjálmur Vikings, which is, from my understanding, it's just a big group of people who really enjoy the Viking culture. They're really all about it. Whatever religious aspects or cultural aspects that Vikings had, these guys celebrate it, including my brother. Which it's going to be linked down in the description, so check it out, you freaks. Check this shit out. It's really cool. But
it is pretty cool.
Oh man, yeah. The way you guys do everything, even just checking out the tents and the boats, and it's good. It's fun. It's interesting. I like Vikings. I just can't do it because bad schedule.
Yeah, it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of time.
True.
It does. It really does.
But all in all, that's kind of how I know Sean and his world. So just happy you're here. But what's your second favorite thing about space? Is it the hexagon?
Ooh, the hexagon.
Well, he said like black holes and hexagons, so
I think it's space is scary. Like, you know, I don't know what the fear. There's probably a word for it. It's kind of like the fear of the ocean. I think is like thalassophobia or something. But there's
like a fear of
something.
Vastness and.
Yeah, it's terrifying because like everything can kill you. Like, on fast, like for instance, Jupiter is amazing, right? It's huge. It's almost like I guess they consider it like a brown dwarf, which is like a failed star. So it's radiating like a bunch of radiation. So if you were to visit one of Jupiter's moons, you'd be cooked alive by the radiation. So you'd have to have like a lot of protection to be there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
The last thing I heard about Jupiter was talking about the storm that's been on it for years.
Yeah, the red dot.
The red dot, yeah. And like how if we had a similar amount of mass on our planet like Jupiter does, then our storms would be just as long.
Yeah, Jupiter's huge. I think the Earth can fit inside the red dot storm. It's so big, and that just blows my mind. Like, there's a storm the size of a planet. Like,
God, yeah.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and like it's just a gas planet. So if you fell into it, I mean, depending on what you're made up of, you would just keep falling into it. It would just things would start turning black, and you just keep going deeper, and it's huge. Eventually, I think you'd like overheat. You'd eventually start slowing down, but it's mostly just like gas and liquid, and it's just insanely hot and radiated.
God.
Crazy.
God, I love space.
Planets. Space itself is crazy too. So
I just think about. Sometimes I think about like how just small we are in comparison to everything else. Like, and it sometimes makes me feel insignificant because we're so small, but it also makes me feel significant because.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
I feel the same exact way.
We're a part of this big, ever-expanding universe.
Yeah, just because we are so small in comparison to the infiniteness of space, we are so massive in our own lives and our own beings. The things we've accomplished, compared to infinity, are small, but compared to anything that is of value to us, are massive.
Yeah, and the fact that we haven't found anything else like us, it makes us seem pretty significant too, and pretty precious, pretty fragile, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Man. Well, did you guys see that thing where it's like lights on a different planet? That we might have found city lights on a different planet?
No.
No?
Tell me more.
Shit. I lights. I gotta look this up now. Shit, it's been a little bit since I looked it up.
I mean, that's pretty
Lights
crazy.
on,
I haven't heard that before.
another planet. There we go. It's an Earth-like planet. I know we're supposed to be talking about you, but now we're talking about.
Bro, space.
No, we're good. This is awesome. It's fine.
So the James Webb Telescope detects lights from a small Earth-like planet, and it's missing its atmosphere. Let me grab a picture real quick, but it's 378 trillion kilometers away. And what does it say? It's the TRAPPIST-1 planets, and they're orbiting a star much smaller and redder than our sun, known as an M dwarf star.
Okay.
That's interesting. It'd be a strange phenomenon to find
Let me get the picture.
lights similar to those we create on a planet still similar to ours.
Yeah, it could be a bunch of different things. It could be civilization. It could be maybe it's like a lava planet. Maybe there's some kind of really crazy magnetic phenomenon going on where there's an aurora borealis that's like crazy bright, or electrical storms. You know,
I'm trying to find the picture that was sent, but the only picture I'm getting is like Spain. Just the lights around Spain and Portugal.
Spain is a different planet, 700 trillion
crazy.
miles away.
That's fucking crazy.
That's fucking wild.
I mean, the Spanish were colonists. I mean, maybe they, made it that far.
They hopped up and left. And just traveled to space. Well, why? You know what? Since we're talking about you, why do you find space so fascinating?
I don't know. I just always liked science and physics. I grew up really enjoying like sci-fi movies and things, and it was always just mind blowing. I asked a lot of questions as a kid, and I didn't always get the answers. Sometimes my parents wouldn't give me the answer because either I didn't need to know or they didn't know, so they were frustrated and they would just not give me the answer. And it would just like I just had this need to know everything, and I guess just once learning about space, it was just so big and hard to comprehend. It just like I wanted to know more. There's so many questions, and
so much space.
And it just kind of grew. I mean, there were different, it wasn't just like I love space and then it's just always been that way. It was kind of something that kind of grew. When I became like a teenager, I got really into Carl Sagan. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He's kind of a physicist, and he had this show in the 70s called Cosmos, and he had a book called Cosmos, which is actually surprisingly, as long ago as that was, it's still pretty relevant. The stuff he talks about, like some of the science is a little bit outdated, but a lot of the things he says are relevant to today. It's like a philosopher, but really opened my mind to kind of all of that. And I just like ate it all up, and I can't get enough of it. And I got really into like relativity, the fact that, your time could be different from somebody else's and they could age faster than you and stuff like that. It's just mind-blowing how that works. Like I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, for relativity is some crazy shit.
Yeah, I think it just started with like dinosaurs, and then started with like how old is the Earth, and then you go from there. How is the Earth formed, and then it's just like space. So,
every good interest starts with a dinosaur. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs are crazy.
Dinosaurs are great, man.
I love dinosaurs.
What's your favorite dinosaurs?
I do love the structure of a megalodon, just because it's just a giant, big ass shark. Like I'm pretty sure it's about half the length at its biggest, half the length of like the Empire State. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong.
That's a big fucking megalodon.
Like the size of the tower?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how big they were, but they were pretty big.
For me, it was mostly like the water dinosaurs. I'm blanking for water dinosaurs besides a megalodon. Water dinosaurs. Water dinosaurs. But just the idea that these creatures existed just excites me because, like you were saying about enjoying sci-fi, I too enjoy sci-fi just because like Star Wars and Star Trek and
Yeah.
Battlestar
You like
Galactica.
Star Wars?
I know it. Sorry, Malcolm. Sorry, Malcolm. But like these creatures, they're just their own little thing. I don't know. It's just fun. Fun big creature.
I don't know if it counts as a dinosaur because it's kind of not exactly what we think of a dinosaur because it's a mammal. I like the Megatherium, which is real big ground sloths. The fuckers are cool as hell.
Oh, it's like a bear.
Yeah,
It's like
kinda.
Bear.
It's like a sloth,
Giant
but if
bear.
it was as big as a fucking elephant.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like, I guess I'm pretty basic. As a kid, I've always liked like the T Rex, and then I got really obsessed with like the Allosaurus, which is kind of like a T Rex. Like, there's this book that I had as a kid, and it really made the Allosaurus like look way like really cool and scary looking. He was like red, and I was like, oh, they must all be just red, but they don't know what color they were. But you know, it just like burned into my brain. I was like, that's my favorite one, and then like Jurassic Park came out and I was like, Velociraptors are so cool, you know, and there's like a basketball team called the Raptors, and you know.
Velociraptors are badass as hell.
Yeah.
You can't stop me from liking Velociraptors.
But yeah, I'm pretty basic. I like that stuff, but it's mostly just because of pop culture influenced me. And
the Gigantosaurus, which is like just a
He's
bigger.
big.
I think that's everybody's depiction of a T-Rex.
Possibly. I just liked how scary they were, like in Jurassic Park. But they made it like it's a horror movie, and now it's not. I mean, I guess it's still kind of a action-y horror or whatever, but when you really think about it, it's terrifying. Like if you went in a time machine and went back to the dinosaur times, like it would not be a good time at all.
It would be so bad.
No. Even if you never saw a dinosaur, just running into like the giant bugs, like no thanks.
Big mosquito.
Yeah.
Fucking like, half of all of creatures are really good at killing you, and the other half are not small or weak enough that you could kill.
Yeah.
Even with advanced tools and shit, like
a Brachiosaurus.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of dinosaurs were sized approximately horse size. And I couldn't kill a horse with a spear. At the very least, I'd have a hard time.
No.
Yeah, even some of the stuff that's alive today, like those, even just like crocodiles, are pretty terrifying. And those, what are they called? Those lizards that like run around and they have like a poisonous like saliva or something.
Komodo dragons.
They're pretty big. Yeah, those are pretty terrifying too. They're aggressive.
Yeah. And those are the closest we really have to dinosaurs, other than like chickens.
Pretty much. And then birds, yeah.
Yeah, I could kill a chicken.
And then speaking of that...
Yeah, I was just about to say, why is it that, like, birds are the closest thing to a dinosaur than an actual, like, lizard?
I think it's just how, you know, I think they think, like, an asteroid hit. It's just how kind of evolution took, like, what survived. The smaller animals were able to kind of get away from those areas and find food and survive, like, the cold and stuff.
Our atmosphere also used to be a lot more air dense, which meant larger fauna and flora were able to survive.
Yeah.
And as the air density reduced, smaller creatures thrived.
Well, even same with like humans, like the giant people that we found bones of in the Appalachians. That's just
Humans have not really been that much bigger than they were now. But
so it's like, so speaking of birds, have you guys ever like listened? It's a thing people do. They slow down the sounds of like different birds, like lower the pitch, to say this is what dinosaurs would sound like. So they take like actual bird sounds. And it's terrifying. If you just like listen to it and imagine like you're in like a jungle or something and there's like something out there,
Hear that
it's
shit?
terrifying. And then you see what the kind of bird it is, and it's like this little tiny like robin or something. You're like, oh, okay. But it sounds like a raptor that's like hunting or something, and you're like, oh God, what the hell is that? Like it's straight up like nightmare fuel.
God, I'm gonna have to listen to that. I want more videos. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm getting distracted.
I'm going to pull us
you're
off
good.
of this train a little bit
Man,
and onto a different train that we're all fucking nerds about.
Let's talk about trains. I'm kidding.
I can go on tangents, so I apologize if I'm jumping
No,
everywhere.
it's
No,
perfect.
you're good.
I love dinosaurs. That's just cool as hell.
I love dinosaurs.
Why do you play tabletop RPGs? And what influenced you to play them?
That's a good question because I play a lot of that. I play a lot of it, and specifically, I play Dungeons and Dragons. I don't play all kinds of tabletops. I want to kind of branch out and learn a few more. I think I've only played like 3 or 4 different kinds. But why do I play it specifically? And what was the other part of the question?
It's just, why do you play tabletop RPGs? What influenced you to play them or continue playing them?
Okay. I think I was obsessed with just fantasy. I grew up with I never really read a lot of books until I got older, so I watched a lot of TV. I was kind of raised by TV as a kid, and I grew up like really falling in love with the Hobbit cartoon, the really old like 70s Hobbit cartoon.
That's the best.
Yes, and then also there was a Dungeons and Dragons TV show that I was obsessed with, and it was just really cool. I got really into like gargoyles and all that
weirdly
kind of
animated
stuff.
one?
Yeah, it's animated. Yeah,
That's a great show.
and it's really funny because like the first episode of the Dungeons and Dragons show, they fight Tiamat, which is like the top tier
Jesus
like
Christ.
dragon.
That's so
it's
great.
like, and then it's like, what? Like, come on, like that's like a top shelf like enemy there, like, and it's the first episode. Like, come on. But no, I jumped into that, and then my friends. It was never really part of pop culture D&D. Like people talked about it a little bit, like from the 80s, but nobody really ever played it much. In the 90s that I knew, in the 2000s, it really blew up recently. But I played a game called Hero Quest, and it was kind of like a boiled down D&D. And I played that in the 90s with some friends, and I loved it. I loved that you got to pick a character, and somebody was like the DM or whatever, and they would design the dungeon. You could explore and look for traps and secret doors. And then I got, really into video games like Elder Scrolls and Skyrim and stuff. And D&D is basically like influenced the creation of those type of games. And it just kind of blew up in the last like decade, and I got sucked into it. And I've been playing with a group like steady every week, every other week for 7 years straight. So this is
Holy shit.
Yeah, this summer was like
game.
the seventh or eighth anniversary of our group playing. I mean, we've played a couple different campaigns, but we're still more or less the same group.
7 years.
Yeah, and my first D&D was I actually DM'd it, and I never DM'd it before, but nobody knew how to play. So I was like, I'm the kind of person where it's like I don't always trust somebody's going to do a good job, so I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I'm like neurotic. I'm like very consistent. Like I'm going to make sure it happens every week and da 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 da. So I just jumped in and just threw myself into it and DM'd, and I was DMing for a year before I even got to play. It was really a weird flip on how that works when you're used to being the DM, and then all of a sudden you're a player. It becomes terrifying because you're like, oh God, I could die. You realize all the bad things that can happen to you. And then for other people,
you go
when
from
they're a player for so
omnipowerful
long,
storyteller.
yeah. And then the opposite happens to people when they're a player for a long time. Being a DM is so intimidating because they're like, I can't imagine doing all these things, and it's honestly not very difficult, but. And then why I play it, I just love it. It's a creative thing. It's you use your imagination. Some of the people I played with are like childhood friends, and we used to play with our imaginations as kids, so it's like comes naturally to us. And it's just it's a stress reliever. Kind of like some people call it like D&D therapy too. You kind of experiment with different like personalities and characters and things, and it's like group storytelling. Basically, you're telling a story together and building a story together. It's the most interactive storytelling I could think of. Probably one of the best. I think it's better than books, better than movies, better than games. It's my opinion of it. So
The most interactive medium that can exist.
yeah, I don't think anything's ever going to beat it. AI might try
Mm.
to artificiate it. I don't know how you say it, but I don't think nothing's ever really going to beat like an in-person session with real people.
There's something about that human connection and you just laughing with friends that, like, you can't beat that.
Yeah.
So do you just love the creation or the journey with it? What do you love about it?
I think it's just getting outside of your box. Like for instance, like I can be kind of a control freak sometimes, and like when I first started playing, I would naturally kind of fall into a party leader situation or a strategist or like a wizard where I can help problem solve, and outthink things. But that's how I naturally think. So then later I was like, I'm gonna try some other character types. So I played as a barbarian,
Mm.
and like I want to negotiate and problem solve everything naturally, but like as a barbarian I'm like, nope, I less talking, more fighting. And it was kind of like liberating. It was really cool to play a badass where a character, they will try to, like a monster or something will try to threaten you, and then he's just like, F you, I don't care, fight me, like it was really awesome. And then being a bard, like I have like some social anxiety, and like being as like a bard, you're kind of more outgoing, and I played as like a jokester, and I would like, you try to use charisma to like manipulate and get into weird conversations and stuff. It's just kind of like you kind of get to practice getting outside of your own box and personality to kind of experiment. That's one of the main things I like about it. And then just being able to be creative, like create things.
Mm-hmm. Create your
So,
own story, create your own path.
yeah, create your own like plots and then build off of other people's stories. And as a DM right now, like I world build. I've world built like a whole like planet basically, and like continents, and like a world history of like the campaign that I'm running right now. And that was like the first time I've ever done that. I used to do the pre-made campaigns, and then I finally did like a homebrew, and it's been like eye-opening. And then learning that people who write like fantasy and books and stuff, they do world building too. And it's like, wow, this is like, yeah, I've been like reading and watching things on people and like that write books to learn how to do what they do, which actually helps me DM. So it's like a whole, I almost want to like maybe write someday, so it's a cool medium. It's a cool like way to express yourself. So
God, yeah, no, I can't help but agree. D&D is definitely put me just in strange places, because like you have to, like you said, you have to think outside the box sometimes, step into somebody else's shoes, even though you as a player wants to do something completely different.
yeah, and it's weird because some people write into their character stories like their own personality, or they put their own personality into it, and some people even have like a weird connection, like they're almost telling their own story through somebody else's story, but they just kind of changed it around. And sometimes there's traumatic events that happen, like somebody will die in the game and it'll affect people, and they'll actually like tear up, like they get really attached, and they'll have like a lot of meaning attached to things. So sometimes it's like it hits people on a really deep level. Sometimes they get really connected, they get really deep into it.
So how did you start playing with your team or your friends?
As far as like D&D,
Mm-hmm.
well,
Your
we're all just
team.
kind of a bunch of nerds, like, and a few of us were cousins, so we've known each other for a long time. And like my cousin's uncle, sorry, their dad, my uncle, he used to play D&D back in the day, so it was always just kind of like on the tip of our tongues, like we knew it existed, but we didn't really know what it was. And then I think, I don't know, it's like around the time it started blowing up on the internet, there was like Critical Role was like just coming out, and like Stranger Things had D&D in it, and everybody was just starting to talk about it, and there was a new edition out, and we all just kind of we played another game called Talisman, and we were doing voices for the characters of that, and we're like, we should just play D&D, but none of us knew how, and we just kind of agreed to start playing it, and we just got really sucked into it and just haven't stopped playing it. But I think the reason why we got into it and why it's so successful is just because we all know each other. We're all friends or family, and somehow we've able to just make our schedules make it work. We make it like a priority, and we're able to kind of put time aside. And we've had a few people come and go, but
yeah, that's the most impressive thing about your 7-year game is that everybody finds time.
Yeah, and like some of the people go ahead.
No, trying to do D&D every 2 weeks or every week alone.
It's just hard.
Oh.
Yeah. It is especially when you have a job that has a fluctuating schedule, or but some people, it gets so important to them, they'll like literally try to find jobs that doesn't conflict, or they'll try to pick a schedule that doesn't conflict because D&D is so important. And like my cousin, for example, he always tells us like D&D is like the highlight of his week. Like he looks forward to it every day up into the day. And then if there's ever like if it gets postponed, it just like ruins the whole week. So it just becomes like a big part of it. You do it so long, it's just like, this is just what we do, and
yeah. No, that makes sense.
Having the ability to play remotely helps. So we've had to lean on that a few times, like during COVID and stuff, and that definitely helps technology.
Yeah, I gotta say, doing it online and being free to just do it from your home is such a great fucking thing for D&D.
Oh yeah. Yep.
There is something I would say is lost in not doing it with a group of friends in real life, but it's worth it to just do it.
Yeah, we actually play in person, and then we have one person remote in. We have like a screen set up with a webcam because they live in Seattle. So and they remote in, and they've never played before they met us, and all they've done the whole time is play remotely with us. And I'm always like, man, that must really suck, because sometimes we'll get into these conversations about TV shows and they're just sitting there on the screen like watching us. So it's hard to hear them sometimes, so they're not able to like be in the moment as quickly and responsive. But they tell me like they love playing with us, and it's still amazing to them, and I'm like, that's awesome to hear. I think the remote play it is definitely still pretty awesome.
God,
yeah, that's cool.
That's really cool.
I've always thought about how fun it would be to do a game in person with like one person who's in a different state and just set up a laptop for them.
Yeah, that's literally what we do. Is we'll have a grid and a table, and we're all sitting around it, and then we have this little webcam on a little stand that points at the table, and it shows the miniatures on the map, and then we have another webcam on the other side of the room where the TV is, so he can see it from a perspective as if he's sitting with us.
Mm-hmm.
We never had it set up this fancy before. It was like it took a while to kind of get the equipment and kind of get it dialed in, but that's what we have now, and it works pretty good. So
hell yeah.
7 years though, that's impressive.
It really is. Are there any standout moments from your games?
Oh, I mean, there's a couple, but like one that really got me was there was a character that he was like the innocent character of the group. He was like a cleric or something, but he was like very kind, and he was kind of the moral compass of the group, and he was like a turtle character, so he talked really slowly, and his name was Wabu. Yeah, and he got in D&D, if you get knocked unconscious, you have these things called death saves. You roll 3 of them, and if you roll low on all 3, your character just dies. But if you stabilize them, if the other party members like stabilize him or heal him before then, they're fine. So usually they get to them, and like for the longest, we don't have that many deaths in our group, surprisingly, because we plan things out pretty well. We like have a backup plan if somebody goes down. But anyway, if you roll if you roll a 1 on a death save, it counts as 2 death saves.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is basically the bad guy, who was like an asshole, we like really hated this bad guy. He basically knocked him unconscious, and then I think he attacked him once. And when you attack somebody while they're unconscious, it removes one of their death saves. So he like stomped on him or something. And we're like, oh, you asshole. And then when he went to roll his death saves, he only had 2 left. He rolled a 1. So he like immediately died.
No.
And we were like, I was like almost kind of tearing up because I was the party leader. So I felt like I made a mistake. I as a player felt bad. And then also as a character, I had that in like, I was guilt ridden. And I just wasn't ready for that because we didn't expect it to happen. The DM didn't expect it to happen. He was like, "Oh shit, what did I do?" But and then the player was like, it's cool, it's cool. I got another character idea. He played it off really well, but like we were like kind of traumatized a little bit because we didn't expect it.
Yeah.
And I mean that stands out to me the most. We've had a lot of crazy moments and funny moments, but that one was just like, I still think back to that, like, oh man, like, you know, because you can kind of see a death coming sometimes, but it was just so unplanned. And it was to like this, what do they people say today, like when they really love a character, it's like their cinnamon roll. He was like the cinnamon roll of the group. Like we really cared about him and he just died, and it was just, we took revenge very quickly after that. So
good. That'll hard motivate you to kill that fucking BBG.
Yeah. And I'll never forget like the feeling that gave me. Like it's in my brain. So
that's pretty beautiful.
Wow.
D&D makes us feel those fucking things.
Yeah.
Crazy. Huh. Well, maybe moving on from tabletop RPGs or games, are you religious? This is something I do not know about you. Are you spiritual in any way? Karma or something else?
And I don't know how far into the questions you want me to go, because I can just kind of ramble, but like just to kind of give you an overview, I was raised Catholic. My mom was Catholic, my dad was Protestant, and as if you know anything about Catholics and Protestants, they don't get along.
No.
So there was that dynamic, but my dad wasn't. Thankfully, my dad wasn't really overly religious, so we would go to Catholic church basically. But his family was always like, didn't really agree, or maybe they looked at us weird because we were Catholics because they were Protestant. And then my mom's side was all Catholic, but yeah, like this was just my view on it. Like I got, you know, I'm really into science and physics and stuff, and I would ask the hard questions, like, you know, and a certain, you know, I believed in Santa Claus as a kid or whatever, and like once I found out Santa Claus wasn't real, I started asking other questions like, well, is God real? Is Jesus real? Like I started asking those things, and at a certain point I was never really hardcore religious. I never took it serious, and I just eventually became like an atheist, or more of an agnostic atheist. Like I don't know, I don't like to say there's nothing out there or there is no creator, because I don't know. So I feel like saying I'm an atheist is saying I know, but I don't. So I like to say I'm an agnostic atheist. So
you can't prove a negative. Like it cannot be proven there is nothing out there.
Yeah, I'm very open-minded, you know, and like I like to think about things like simulation theory, stuff like that, and you just don't know. And if, for me, it's just I'm just not Catholic anymore. But it's some of the morals I was raised with, I still kind of have. I feel like there's some basic humanity morals kind of built into Christianity that I kind of just carry with me, but I don't practice, and I don't really believe in the Christian beliefs, or I look at it more like it's a mythology, and I'm fascinated by it. Like as a kid, I used to read the Bible when I got really bored when we were in church, because I'm just sitting there listening to them talk about, you know, here we're going to read a letter from the Corinthians to the so-and-sos. Jesus is great. And I'm just like, I'm like, want to just stab my eyes out. And there's, you know, the Bible's right in front of me. I'm like, I'm this, and I was like going through it, like reading Genesis, like, oh, this is fascinating, and like reading about Moses and stuff. Just like those were all really cool. I love the mythology, or the stories or mythology or whatever around Christianity. I think that's fascinating. I think more people should study it. We should have it in pop culture more, kind of like we do with Greek mythology. But I'm not a spiritual person at all, really.
How did your family, the people around you who were religious, react when you stopped believing whatever that looked like for you.
Well, first I gotta say, what's the rating of this podcast? Is this like 18 plus, or
Yeah,
I
I think
don't
so.
know like how far
I mean-
we can go with certain topics?
I mean, we can put a disclaimer.
It doesn't have to be. I'm
Yeah,
not going to say anything bad, but it is gonna
No.
it is gonna talk about some controversy with Catholics. Like, you probably know what I'm gonna say, like the Catholic priests and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
So
You just
anyway,
wrote-
I can just tell you, like, I basically what was it? I went through communion when I was like 12. I don't know how old I was, and then I went through confirmation when I was 16, which is saying I believe in Jesus. And I didn't. I kind of just did it because I don't know. I wanted to do something else. I was bored. I don't know. I wasn't really taking it serious. And then I realized, like, while I was doing it, like, man, this is I probably shouldn't be here right now. Like, these people are serious, and I'm just goofing off. And but at some point, yeah, I basically just, I think I told my dad or something, and before I even said why, because I was like, oh, because of science, and this and that. I was getting really into like Carl Sagan. He just like interrupted me and be like, hey, it's okay, I understand. I'm like, oh, you do? And he's like, yeah, like all the shit going on with like the priests and the pedophiles and stuff, and I understand if you don't want to go to Catholic church anymore. And I was like, no, like, I mean, that is messed up. Like, wow, that's really messed up. But no, that's not the reason. I just don't believe in God. Like, so that's, there was all that going on, but that's not the reason. But no, that my family was my mom is surprisingly open-minded. I have friends that have religious moms, and they were like really crazy religious. Like, they thought Harry Potter was the devil and stuff like that. And like my parents were pretty open-minded, and they didn't have a problem with me not believing. They never judged me. They were just like, oh yeah, like every religion has its own beliefs, and they all kind of believe in the same thing. Like, they have these really weird, like, open-minded belief. They might have been taking us to church just because it's familiar and it's tradition. I don't know how hardcore religious they were, but they never really pushed me into it. They just made me go to church, but they never like forced me to like pray before bed or anything weird like that. So, but they were pretty cool about it. So
That's cool that your parents were at least like, they were cool about it, even if your dad wasn't exactly on the right train at the start.
yeah.
He was still cool with it.
I honestly think that they probably wish, like, deep down, that maybe I kept going or that I was religious or something. But they never like held it against me. They always were like, even with everything else in my life, they were pretty supportive in like what my interests were. They were like, oh, this is what he's interested in. This is what he believes in. They never like forced me to like something. So yeah.
So would you
Yes, that's
say
good.
your childhood was also pretty warm like that, or happier than most?
I would say, I guess so. Like, they kind of just let me do whatever. I had this crazy imagination, and my dad would try to teach me basketball, and I was never really into sports. He'd be like, okay, this is how you play basketball. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to be Batman, and you're going to be the Joker, and I'm going to run over here. And he's like, no, that's not how you play basketball. So
I disagree. I think this is like a great game of basketball.
Right. I got into like, for sports, I got into like skateboarding, but they never like pushed me into that. They never really got me. I mean, sometimes they would buy me something that would kind of spur my interest. But they never like pushed me to do something. They were always just like, hey, here's how you do it, and we can help you do it if you want to do it, and if not, you don't have to. Like, I feel like my dad might have been forced into some things when he was younger, so he felt like he felt like he had to take the stance to not force me into interests I wasn't interested in. They were very like serious about that kind of thing. And that's of all the things about my parents, that's probably the one main good thing that I had from my childhood is just being able to choose the things I like and follow my interests. And they would try to foster my interests. Like, if I was really into like art or science, they would be like, okay, we're going to get you a science set, and we're going to get you a subscription to science books and stuff. And so
Let you explore as much as you could.
yeah, I mean, my dad was in the military, so he was gone a lot overseas, and we had our own like family issues and stuff, and sometimes I wish I did have more guidance in certain areas, and they did push me in some areas, but it was really cool to kind of have like find myself, find my own interests, and not have to kind of follow in their footsteps because they liked something. So
God, that's really cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you ever plan on having kids?
I did a few times. I've actually been married once before. I'm married now. I just got married recently.
Good for you.
This is my second marriage. But yeah, long story. But yeah, I did. I don't know. I want to have kids. I don't know if it's gonna happen. It used to be where I was like, I have to have kids or life is meaningless. Like that's why I'm here, is to have kids. And like from a science perspective, I'm like, millions and billions of years of my DNA being passed down. I have to pass it on. If I don't, it's just a waste. I used to have that mindset for the longest time. And this now I'm thinking I've kind of changed my perspective on it. I'm of mind of more like, what can I do for like humanity? And it doesn't really matter. Like because it just doesn't matter. So now at this point, I'm just like, if I want to have kids, I want to give them like a good life. And, can I give them a good life? And if I can, maybe I'll, it's not like solid. It's not like a solid plan, but we're kind of open to it, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not. So we'll see.
And then if you do you plan on taking up that same process with your own kids?
That my parents did?
Yeah.
Probably. I don't know. I could probably be like, if they're really into something I'm not, I might like try to, I guess so. I guess I'd try to follow that. I feel like I would be like, I can't think of an example, but let's say there's like a certain video
basketball.
game. Like,
you want to play Batman and Joker?
yeah. I think if they really like something I did not like, I might have a hard time relating to them. Or if there's something I thought was really dumb, it might be really hard for me to not like casually kind of influence them in a direction. Maybe they don't see it, but I'm like influencing them away from it. But I don't think I would be like, no, you can't play that. That's stupid. You have to play this. I would never force them. I'd probably just try to be an influence than a force. But yeah, I think it's important to kind of foster people's interests, because like they're their own person and they're going to be their own adult when they grow up, and you're not going to be in their life forever. And it's like, why not just give them the tools for them to follow their own life path and create something awesome, so
yeah,
they'll only be with you for so long. Might as well set them up to be all free.
Yeah,
it's true.
Huh. Yeah.
I have a question that's kind of scientific, maybe.
Ooh.
Maybe, I don't know.
Go for it.
But I want to ask you, what do you think human nature is in your perspective? Do we have a human nature? Is there something like that connects us all?
I mean, what do you mean exactly?
Like
the human nature.
I think some would say that human nature is to reproduce and to further your DNA, as you were mentioning earlier. But I would argue that humans have no innate nature. We have nothing that is true of all of us, no matter what. We have no purpose in life.
Yeah, that's kind of a hard. Okay, that makes sense. It's kind of a hard question to answer because, like, I guess I have two perspectives on it. Because, like, I'm not a nihilist, but like I do have at some points in my life, I'm just like nothing matters, But I do see things from kind of a science perspective. So I forget. I'm a human too, so like I'm susceptible to it. But I always try to remind myself that a lot of our choices that we make every day are influenced by external forces and like chemical reactions in our brain, and we're kind of at mercy to like what those things or what's going on there. Like what are these chemical reactions that are happening that are influencing us? And some people have like a discipline to like, nope, I'm not going to follow that, or I'm going to carve my own path because this is what I want to do. But I feel like we're just at mercy to like the chemical reactions going on in our brains, and our brains are at mercy to how they're designed. And
Mm.
at the end of the day, like I kind of, we're still not that far from like monkeys, in my opinion. Like if we ran into an alien species, we would be so primitive to them, possibly. Like, um, I don't know. I don't know how to like answer that. I feel like we have like a wiring that we kind of just follow along these like lines that are already pre-carved out for us. Like we do have a choice on which paths we go, but we're kind of limited to what we know and like how our feelings are pushing us along.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we bump into each other, like we have these other interactions that kind of change our life paths. And then as far as purpose goes, like I don't know what the purpose, to ask what the purpose of humans, you have to kind of know what the purpose of the universe is, and nobody really knows that. And then, there's people of mind of like, you have to make your own purpose, like what's important to you, because it doesn't matter, like, or it does matter and you just have to figure it out. Like, so I don't know, that's kind of an open-ended question. So, and it's something that kind of just drives people their whole lives, is figuring out what their purpose is, or they'll find something that gives them purpose.
Maybe to go back a little bit deeper into that, do you think human nature is inherently good or inherently evil?
I don't know. That's because like, how do you define good and evil? It's like, if I was to define good and evil, I guess I would say causing the suffering of others would be considered evil in my view. I guess like if you're purposely hurting others or and getting pleasure out of it, I guess that would be considered like an evil. And I don't think humans are really wired that way. We're definitely capable of doing that, and there's situations like perfect storms where people are put in situations where they do some really evil things or they commit atrocities, and things like that, and then they were maybe never evil their whole life, or maybe there is an evil person, and that's just kind of how their brains wired, is that they just don't have any issues with causing suffering, or and then the opposite, like people that prevent suffering or do everything in their power to limit suffering of others, you could say those are good. But I think everybody's more or less neutral when they come into the world, and depending on how their brain's wired, if they have any kind of mental illness, that might influence it. But I feel like everybody's pretty neutral, and I think we're kind of a community species, where we're kind of built to survive and live together as a community. When people are by themselves, they don't really live very long, or they don't survive very long, like in the wilderness. So I think we're kind of built to be a community type of, or communal species. So it's in our best interest for others around us to survive. And if people aren't suffering and they're surviving, is a good thing. I guess we're inherently good, but we may not. It might not look like that when it comes to like how we treat the environment around us, though. So
Is it fair to say that you would argue we are inherently communal, and as such we are good to each other? But
possibly,
that does not
yeah.
always extend to the things which are not each other.
Yes and no, because I feel like we could still, you know, we could still survive, but treat each other like shit. Because people
True.
still do that. Like there was slavery, and there's people treating people a certain way, and like women were treated very poorly in the past. But we've come this far in civilization, but so many bad things have happened. So you're still capable of doing evil things or doing bad things or causing suffering in a community. But I feel like in general, if a human isn't suffering like trauma, and they're able to like care for themselves and their family, and they can extend that out to others, and there's like no suffering, I feel like it limits the amount of suffering people, or the amount of suffering that's caused, I guess. And then it goes the other way around. If people were raised in like a abusive situation, they might like treat others that way, and it kind of just spreads.
Maybe we're not innately good or evil, we're just what we have been made to be by society, and whether that really is good or evil is up to the reader, up to the listener to decide.
Yeah, because if everybody decided like killing people was pretty cool, and You know, like we would just be like, "That's probably good." You
That's
know,
probably a good
I
thing.
don't know. Yeah. So it depends on like what is this? What's this culture? What's the social norms? What is the values of this culture?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Good and evil are ultimately subjective.
For me, it's just is somebody suffering or not, and are they causing suffering? That's just how I define it
Mhm.
personally, my own morality. So
I think that's a pretty good way to define it.
God, that's
I don't know for sure. I think that's more of a Buddhist thing. I might have learned it from that somehow, but I think that's kind of a Buddhist mindset is to limit suffering of others.
yeah. Mm,
I
Well,
think
and
so.
I think it's limit suffering in general. So limit suffering to themselves and try to attain a higher uh, way of life, which is such an interesting question, or interesting reality to try and attain a higher lifestyle. Which
Yeah, it
to be like, if just as me as an individual to try and attain a higher lifestyle, it's very much possible. But to have the rest of the world try to attain that is almost scary. I don't know.
yeah, and it's a whole rabbit hole like Buddhism. Like they you know they believe in reincarnation, and I think there's like some multiverse theories involved entwined there too. So like it's pretty deep when you dive into it. How they think about cycles and how many lives you have, and each life that you have, can you ascend into a higher plane of existence? Yeah, it's really
Hmm.
interesting stuff.
Well, with this talk of like being social creatures and having a community, and it's kind of a theme on the podcast. It's off and on, but this debate of nature versus nurture, which is more important? What's your thoughts on that?
What's more important, nature versus nurture?
Yeah, the nature of people. Uh, Sorry, the nature of one's personality, or the nurture of the people around them.
That's kind of a hard question because, like, when I think of nature versus nurture, I think about when people, you know, they're trying to decipher, like, oh, how was this serial killer made? Was it because of their environment or were they born that way? So that's what I think of when I think of
Mhm.
nature versus nurture is how a person was raised and does that influence their personality or what they become someday?
That's kind of the idea that I've had, but it's some people think of it in other directions, just like bigger picture. Um,
But do I think
that
it?
makes sense.
So you're saying like is it important to nurture others or is it better or is it more important for what do you mean?
So I think the way we often ask is which has more impact on you
That's right.
and which do you
Oh,
believe
okay.
has more impact on most people? And are those different?
Okay.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Um I don't know. I feel like so nature would that be like how we're born or like how
See,
or how in nature interacts with us?
usually the way I define them is nature is the state in which you're born. Uh,
Mm.
your skin color, your those things which are innate to the person, even those are often hard to decide, hard to define scientifically. Um, versus nurture, those things which are not innate and are learned.
Well, I will say nurture. It seems like we have more control over the nurture side of
Mhm.
it, and depending on how somebody's nurtured, greatly affects the kind of person they become, and it greatly affects the people around you. So, I would say that would be more important, in my opinion. I think if you were to learn, it's important to study both, but I think overall, kind of learning more about nurture and how people are like nurtured and how I feel like that's more important overall. I feel like as humans it's probably better for our survival to really understand that side of things more, or at least the general public.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a
Hmm.
good question.
Yeah. Dang.
Hey, if you got in a car accident, what would you do?
I got.
It'd be bad. Well,
I probably wouldn't do very well.
yeah.
Depending on
Fair
how
enough.
bad it is.
What if you stopped it with your body though?
Oh, that would be pretty badass. I mean, I
That would
have a
be pretty
superpower.
You
Just like
know
grabbed
what?
it.
Speaking of superpowers, in this big realm of superpowers that people talk about, what would you choose? This is like our final question. Like
Cool. I actually love that question whenever it's asked. I love that question. I love hearing other people's answers too. I feel like it really gives you an insight into the person somehow. I'm always torn between invisibility or time travel. I feel like I usually lean towards time travel because I feel like if you can time travel, then invisibility doesn't matter.
Bro, somebody saw me. Okay, go back in time, fucking
Yeah,
idiot.
or that, or maybe not time travel, but being able to like to freeze time or slow it down, because then I could move really fast, like the Flash or something. I feel like that would be something I'd want because I feel like I could control my situation. I feel like I could live longer or skip through the areas of my life that suck. Like, I always wished I could like put myself on autopilot and just like skip through the workday. So something probably have to do with
sleep in the morning.
Yeah. And as a kid, I always wanted to like be invisible so I could like rob a bank or something. I don't know. I thought that'd be kind of cool.
That should be fun.
But I think just slowing time down because then I could like appreciate things and learn how things worked, and then kind of control my situation more, or slow down the awesome moments and speed up the crappy ones.
Interesting. Malcolm, I want to ask you that question. What's your ideal superpower?
So, honestly, my answer, and maybe I'm just stealing, is probably control of time. That shit's pretty cool.
That's a good one.
It's nice. It's like I feel like I could do a lot of learning and a lot of studying, and I feel like there's not much that like practically is more useful in a day-to-day sense. Like there's so many times when I'm like, I wish I just had 20 more minutes to do this. I wish I just had 20 more minutes to do this. I wish this was just 20 minutes faster. But I think I would also probably, in a similar vein, be into the idea of immortality or invulnerability, effectively infinite life. I often see people talking about how terrible it would be for all your friends and family are going to die. Okay, they're going to do that anyway. You'll never love, you'll never care for anybody. Eventually, in a mortal human life, everybody I know and love is going to die. And so I might as well just be able to make more friends and come to find more love. So, if I'm not stealing, if I'm not stealing an answer, I'd probably say immortality.
Wow.
Or forever youth, or whatever that is.
That's
right.
That's such a good way to say it. I've never even thought about that. I'm like, yeah, you are gonna watch your friends and die, friends and family die, but like, they're gonna do that anyways.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna do that anyways. Just as a human person who is mortal, I might as well be able to make more.
Well, pretty soon you can make your own like robot AI friends, and you'll have all the friends you need.
Stop it!
Live forever.
I don't like robots; they're cringe.
I hate robots.
They'll never be the same as a human connection.
Shannon, what about your superpower?
Would probably be
I've got
a robot or something.
I've got two. My easy fun answer would be the power to clone myself, and then if I come back together with all my clones, I gain all of their knowledge or things that they did.
Wow, that's an interesting one. I've never heard of that before.
So when people like are like, let's say I study a chapter each, like let's say there's 50 chapters in a book. I study all 50 chapters, and then once I come back together, I gain all that knowledge, and I'm big brain. Or like exercising.
Clones, each one studies a chapter.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Dr. Manhattan a bit, isn't it?
I've never seen
From the Watchmen.
The Watchmen, yeah.
Okay.
I've heard it's cool. But
It is pretty cool.
Then I guess my other answer would be I guess it's also a fun, easy answer is teleportation. I like the idea of time travel, but teleportation, like to be able to just go places, I'm a very big, like, I want to go traveling and shit. So I could just, up and go, pack a bag, up and go somewhere for the weekend. With or without
That would be
friends.
pretty cool.
But also just like be very nice to just be like teleport to work.
Yeah.
Fuck this shit.
Like if I'm late to work, kind of, I just, up and go.
Just pop.
It'd make it so much easier for everything in my life. Because, go grocery shopping. Up. I'm there. I'm at grocery outlet, bargain market, baby.
Well, see, if you can slow down time fast enough and go fast, you can. It's basically teleporting.
Yeah, but my thing with the whole time travel thing, if you want to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to Japan, I'll just time travel to Japan. I get it. Control time, so like you swim to Japan and then it's just like minutes later or seconds later, whatever.
You're just really wet when you get there.
You're just really wet when you get there.
Just wet.
But while you're slowing down time, I just am over in Japan.
Yeah, but what if I want to like take a nap?
That's up to you. What does that mean?
Take a nap. Have a go, guys.
He just leaves podcast.
Well, actually, like for me, like the time thing, I always wanted to like stop time so I could take a nap and everything would stay the same and I could just take this huge long nap and then when I'm done, I could just start it again. And then while everybody else is sleeping, I could go get shit done. Like I always hated losing 8 hours to sleep, but I still want the sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, fucking real.
That's it. You know what? And then for long car rides, no stopping. You don't have to stop.
Yeah.
I guess the other answer I would have, so I guess I have 3, is flight. Because as much as I also like teleportation, the ability to fly endlessly, I would be able to enjoy the journey a lot more without a lot of repercussions, I think.
Well, flight would also just be cool. Go like up. Go up is cool.
Going up.
Although, didn't you just say you were afraid of heights?
Yeah, but I could fly. I can't fly right now, Malcolm.
Are you afraid of falling? Or are you afraid of heights?
But if he can fly, he won't fall. He can just float.
I guess. Yeah, but yes, if you want to narrow it down, Malcolm, I'm afraid of falling.
Okay. Well, the thing that fucks me about heights is my brain is like, hey, it's far up and I don't like this, and not like, hey, I'm gonna fall.
That's my brain. Hi, I'm the brain who's
like,
just
hey,
like, we're high up, we might fall.
Okay, well, figure that the fuck out.
I just did.
Okay.
I think that's a really basic. That's a really basic superpower, but it is still pretty cool. Like it is a solid one. Like flying is pretty cool. Yeah.
You'd probably get in trouble with like the airspace people.
Probably get shot down.
Probably would get shot down pretty quickly.
Yeah, even just in your local community, man flying.
Yeah, I actually see flying people all the time, and I just whip out a AA gun and blow them out of the air.
Nice.
Dude, that's hot.
That I'm blowing them?
The fact, well, yeah, but the fact that you have an AA gun on hand for people who fly.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's called a psychosis.
I think we should be done with this. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a good episode.
I'm going insane.
This one's good. Thank you everybody for listening to this podcast. Thank you, Shaun, for coming on and bullshitting with us. And
thanks you for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Letting us pick into your brain. Yeah, I enjoyed this a lot.
That was a good time.
So, sorry, Malcolm. Like always, we have the housekeeping stuff. Thank you to Nadia Diaz for our podcast cover art. Her Instagram is at Arthead Creations. That'll be linked down in the description. And then also check out her website, which is kind of a little mini resume or portfolio. I'm pretty sure it's a portfolio, but you can see all of her animation content. That website is www.nadiadiazvfx.com. So go check it out. You can
It's also in the
also
description.
yeah. Thanks, Malcolm.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Also, she does things like making tattoos for people, making D&D characters for people. She does a lot of fun art things, and so you should ask her to do art things for you. Make cool art paintings, or, like I said, D&D characters for us nerds.
Nice.
Thank you. And then also thank you to Jensen Krall, who made our intro and outro for this podcast. I honestly, every time I edit together an episode, I love hearing it. I won't lie. It's just, it makes me feel...
Good song.
It makes me feel things. It's so good.
What's all about?
What?
I was saying that's what it's all about, is feeling things.
I know it. And he has made a song called Knocking on Doors for his musical Tea Time. You can check out his song in the description. It's on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music. Also, send us questions for people like Shaun. And maybe you just want us to answer your specific questions. Our website is waiting 4 seconds. The number 4 seconds. It's a Gmail, motherfucker. Ah.
All right, cancel the whole show. We have to do it again.
Sorry.
Do over.
Ruined it.
Send us your questions, please, before I get bullied more.
Also,
That's
go
our email.
check out the Seattle Vikings. Their Facebook group is cool.
Solhamir.
Yeah.
I did it. Nailed it in one. Their Facebook.
They have a cool Facebook. I looked at it. There's a guy. He's making things on it.
Well, he's not wrong. Go check it out. That's also going to be linked in the description. So if you're in the area and there's events happening, go check out the website and no, not the website, the Facebook page. So you can see what these guys are up to. I think that is it. Yeah, thanks again, Shaun, for coming on. Is there anything else that I'm missing from any of you? Malcolm, are you doing anything fun?
Never.
Oh. I'm sorry. Thanks, Shaun, for coming on.
It got quiet real fast.
I know it. We will talk to you guys next time on this Jed.
Bye, guys.